Hello? There we go. Very good. All right. Well, I've been to enough of these, but this is a first, so bear with me. So the first order of business is the reading of the call of the meeting. So I'll ask, before we read the call, if there is a motion from the floor to waive the reading of the call. That way we can move forward. Ron Jaffe, do I have a second? Steve Harding? Any discussion on that, or can we do? No? All right. Vote on waiving of the call? All those in favor say aye. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Thank you. Okay. The next one's smoother. All right. Next order of business is Resolution 1, the special appropriation of $1,177,000 for storm damage. First thing we need to do is read the resolution unless we waive it. So is there a motion to waive the reading of the resolution by the town attorney? Steve Harding moved. Is there a second? I hear a second. All in favor of waiving the reading of the resolution, please say aye. Opposed? I think that was consensus, but I'm not really sure. Can we do that again? Can we raise hands? So all those in favor of waiving the reading of the resolution, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay, I think that passes. Okay, great. Okay, so now we move on to a presentation that Mr. Dunn will walk us through.
Let's move on. Okay, these are the subjects that we're going to be discussing tonight. The first thing we're going to do is discuss the storm damage and appropriating the $1,177,000 to clear the town right-of-way. There will be an opportunity for everyone to ask any questions you have, make comments after. Well, we have our FEMA coordinator, our storm management coordinator, and I'm going to ask him to come up. We have a short presentation to give everyone so you get a better feel for where we are, what the expenses are, and how we plan to address them. Greg Dembowski, would you come up? Thank you. The right one moves forward.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. So before I get started, when you came in, hopefully offered to you was a 3-page narrative that summarized the storm's impact to the town. If you've not received that narrative, there's extra copies up here, and I know there's extra copies you can get on your way out. So I just have 3 slides, and I will be very brief. We submitted our application to FEMA on May 30th as required by FEMA, and that summation netted an application for $3.8 million all the way in the right-hand column. FEMA requires that you submit information by categories A through G. You can read those categories. This is a federal form. We were told to comply with all of their rules, policies, and procedures, and we did exactly that. So the application was across these 3 categories. The estimate of $4.6 million is listed there with all the assumptions they gave us. We have spoken to our insurance carrier, a representative from KERMA. We met with him several times over the past 2 weeks, and based on that application, the preliminary, everything here is preliminary, the preliminary estimate is $823,000 of insurance coverage across those several categories. So our net application to FEMA was $3.8 million. Very important, though, are the footnotes on this page. This number does not include debris removal on state-owned or private roads. This application does not include personal property loss. We know the significant home damage, automobile, boats, that kind of thing. And that does not include business property loss that we estimated at $2 million. Part of the application did allow for submission of business loss, and we have all that information. 50 businesses inputted to us, and that's how we got to the $2 million. The FEMA application did not request in this early stage that we submit an estimated personal property loss. We are working on that now. And Steve, I guess you'll talk about what's coming up with FEMA and, okay. The last thing I'll mention is our insurance carrier. At the last meeting with him a couple days ago, said they're working on forwarding us $500,000 of that 822 just so we can start paying our bills when they come in for this work. Okay, so of that $4.8 million, this is another way, my last slide will summarize why I'm going this way, but another way to look at the data, and many departments, in fact, every department in this town submitted into us the cost they estimated and the labor they estimated to bring the town to pre-storm conditions. They estimated their labor, the contract services, and materials they had to use to bring our town back to where it was before May 15th. So, in summary, 12,000 man-hours across those departments were expended or will be expended to bring the town back to May 14th condition. Equipment. We spend and will spend an estimated $473,000 of town's equipment to remove debris and bring it back again to pre-May 15th conditions. What is that equipment? That equipment is fire trucks, air compressors, chainsaws, the uses of generators, et cetera, et cetera. The way you get to that number is FEMA gives you an hourly rate for every piece of equipment you can imagine, bigger than a hand tool, and from that you calculate that number. The next column, $3.5 million, is the estimated cost for contracts and purchases to bring us back to pre-storm conditions. Again, on town right-of-way only, not private property, not any personal business loss. The last column is there's a FEMA monitoring fee, $38,000. You add those last three columns over, and it gets you to $4 million. When you put a dollar value on the labor hours, that's another $580,000. And there's the $4.6 million, less insurance. We're back to the $3.8 million. Since we did this work on May 30th, we've already heard from the schools another $75,000 of damage, but that's after our FEMA submission. The labor dollars, we have to be careful with that number. The FEMA model populates overtime and double time rates. They're not actual out-of-cost dollars. Again, it's a FEMA model, so I'd be very cautious to take hours and divide it into labor dollars. It's not really what we're paying employees. There's all kinds of other things in there that are beyond what we actually do here in town. Again, we're filling out FEMA forms at this point. Last page. PDA is the preliminary damage assessment. That's what we submitted on May 30th. Again, those categories A through G. Categories A and B are what FEMA declares as PA, public assistance. 75% of that, FEMA says, is eligible for FEMA reimbursement. 25% is left back on the town. So when you add up categories A and B, and you take, it's $3.5 million, 75% is federal reimbursement. The town will, again, based on this PDA analysis, the town will have to eat $873,000. Category C through G are another $294,000. So the town is on the hook based on these FEMA formulas for $1.2 million. The feds will pick up $2.6, but there's more to this story. The next three categories, that $1.6 million really isn't out-of-town money because a large piece of the work that went into storm cleanup was from our volunteer fire department. Both Candlewood and the headquarters company, as well as 56 other fire companies that they brought in during the storm. 56 fire companies from across the state. We estimated, based on a value that we were told to use, that the total of those volunteer man-hours is $287,000. In addition, we used $473,000 worth of town equipment. Again, the hourly rate for generators, fire trucks, air compressors, chainsaws, et cetera, et cetera. That's equipment we owned, and it's really not an out-of-pocket expense, if you will. So you subtract those two items, as well as private duty police coverage. When the police are called, like say when Eversource brings them in to secure a line, that bill actually goes to Eversource if it's called in for private duty. You net out those three numbers, and on a preliminary basis, the town's out-of-pocket will be about $400,000. Now, the largest percentage of all these dollars has not been expended yet. There's been very few contracts signed. A lot of these numbers are estimates we're getting from the department heads across the board, but it's our best guess on what we submitted on May 30th. I got some additional notes there, and I guess that's really it. So, you know, I got to tell you, it's really easy to talk about numbers, but what comes into town hall are the personal stories. And from the selectman's office all the way down to every department at town hall, we have heard unbelievable stories about people that need the town. We need each other. We need anything we can get together to help those really in need and that are struggling through this. So I hate to be up here and just coldly talk about numbers, but these are the numbers, but the personal stories are tremendous. And I know every one of you have heard more than I'll ever hear. But that being said, these are the numbers where we sit as of now.
Thank you, Greg. I just would like to thank Greg. I asked him the day after the storm to come in and help us begin to track what we were doing because we believed we were going to submit an application to FEMA. And literally the paperwork and the spreadsheets are about this thick, and Greg has been working 10, 12 hours a day to do that. And I thank you, Greg. It's been some pretty thankless work. So now we need to look at this from an overall town standpoint. We have some massive damage to almost every single neighborhood in this town. When the night of the storm came, I have never been more proud to be a Brookfield resident than to see people out there on their streets, helping their neighbors, chopping down trees, getting their chainsaws out, clearing a path so emergency vehicles and fire and ambulance can get through. That's Brookfield at its best. It really is. It's just so heartening to see. And people didn't even know each other. They just went out and did it. We're very blessed that no one was killed. We're very blessed that very few people got hurt. So now I would like to continue that. We're in the stage now where we're in recovery. People are anxious. Some people still don't have internet. A few people still don't have power. But we still need to pull together as a town. One of the frustrating things we've been going through is when we talk to FEMA, we do not get solid answers. We ask them, well, if our residents pull stuff from their properties to the street, will FEMA help clean that up? And they say, it depends. And you say, it depends on what? A number of factors. What kind of factors? Oh, many, many factors. So that's the answer we're getting right now. The good news is, because of the quality of the presentation that we have sent to FEMA last Wednesday, well, actually to our Region 5 who sends it to the state, FEMA called us today and they're coming in this Monday. That's a big plus, and it's moving this forward because as of this morning, before they called, we expected to hear from FEMA based on their schedule the third week of August. We can't wait to the third week of August. We need to get this done, and we need to start it now. And that's one of the reasons we're having this meeting tonight. We're asking people to approve the spending of the money to clean the town right of way. We have literally hundreds of trees that are overhanging the road. We have hundreds of what they call widowmakers, branches that are hanging down over the streets or over our walkways. They have to be cleaned up. We can't take that risk. We can't have people going on the Still River Greenway and getting hurt, or kids waiting for the bus and getting hurt, or residents just driving down their street. My street has 4 trees that are hanging at a 45-degree angle over the street. They are going to come down in the next good wind. We have to protect our town and our residents. So we estimate right now that it'll be about $1.5 million is what we estimated, and that's why we're asking for $1,177,000, up to that amount. Under the emergency powers authorized by our charter, the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance did authorize spending the 0.5% of our budget immediately, and we did that last week so we could start cleaning. How this works is, within the first 72 hours of a disaster being declared, I can, as for your first selectman, order things to be done without going out to bid, without having a lot of folderol, because they're emergency things, clearing roads, making it safe. I'm allowed to do that for 72 hours. After that, we have to go back to our normal purchasing process to protect ourselves under FEMA guidelines. You cannot just go out and hire somebody to come clear roads. You can't do it. FEMA will not pay you for that if you don't follow their guidelines. And you have to follow the most stringent guidelines, whether it's the town, the state, or FEMA's. And guess what? Everybody's guidelines are different. So we have to go through, and Greg has to go through, and Jerry Gay, our purchasing agent, have to go through and look at every single one of those guidelines to put together RFPs to do this work. Now, we have gotten back today results from our bid for the cleanup. The good news is they came in under where we think they're going to be. Right now, the bid is at $1 million, just about $1 million, but that does not include clearing our parks, because it's a separate way to do things, and it's separate equipment and separate types of equipment. We anticipate the parks will be about $250,000. With all the other expenses that we have, I think we'll get to the $1.5 million and maybe a little bit more. So we're asking everyone to bear with us. We're not giving up. There are a lot of rules and regulations we would like to do. We have to do the town right-of-way, and so everybody understands our town right-of-way typically runs from 30 feet from the middle of the road to the side. So many people, I had a gentleman come to me today, there's a stone wall in front of his house, it got knocked down. He said, "You broke my stone wall." Well, it's not actually his stone wall, it's the town's, because it's in our right-of-way, we own that property. So we're working with everybody. My belief, and I've said this all along, is that we're going to do our town right-of-way, let's see what FEMA is going to come up with, and then we should do a town-wide cleanup. From all we've been told and all we know to date is the town cannot go onto private property to clear things. But what we hope to do is make it so that residents can just bring stuff to the street and then we'll come clean it up. It's going to be difficult. It's going to take a long time. But if we don't approve these funds tonight, we have 10 people. Ralph Tedesco, our Public Works Director, is here. So is Dave Lathrop, our Fire Marshal. And Wayne Gravius, who's our Emergency Management Director, is here also, in case there are questions we can't answer. We have 10 people in our Public Works Department. If we don't clean this up, the town right-of-way, it's going to take them 3 or 4 years to do it, because they all have full-time jobs already, doing the paving, the storm drains, the clearing the roads, everything that we do, and we need help. So I think we should do this. So I think what I'll do is turn it back over to you, Dan, and then go to a question and answer period.
All right, so we'll move to questions and discussion. So I have a few ground rules, but as I talk about that, anybody who wants to talk or ask questions, why don't you make your way to the right side of the auditorium. So just a few things that I'd like to suggest or as I moderate this. Firstly is I assume there's going to be questions to the panel. So I'd ask Mr. Dombowski and Mr. Dunn specifically to be prepared to answer those questions. I'd rather it not be an ongoing conversation. So if there's ask specific questions and we'll answer those to the best of our ability, but not a extended conversation. Also, there are a lot of things going on in town these days. A lot of meetings that are going on this week, last week, right now. I'd ask that comments and questions today be specifically about the topic at hand. A lot of things are interrelated, so there's some latitude, but please focus on this topic right now. And then finally, we'll limit it, the comments themselves to 3 minutes per speaker. Discussion and answering questions may go longer. And then if you run out of time and want to come back after everybody's had a chance, we'll allow that as well. So as you come up to the podium, please announce your name and address, and we'll get started. So anybody who wants to go first, just go right ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me? Deirdre Corey. I'm at 57 Skyline Drive, and that's in Candlewood Shores. And I just wanted to let people know I'm not here for me or my house or my property or my storm debris. I'm here out of a sense of fairness for my neighbors and my neighborhood. And my specific concern is what I've heard and I'd like clarified that any of this FEMA money or the town money is not going to go to what you're calling private roads, which would include the roads in Candlewood Shores, which are owned by the tax district, and Arrowhead Point and Candlewood Lake Club. So before I kind of get into that, I just wanted to clarify a few points for myself so that I'm not misunderstanding things. Tonight we're talking, you've made a resolution for us to vote on an appropriation of $1.177 million from the town's general fund. Is that correct? Okay. You've also presented to us an application for FEMA funds. So what's the difference? So to me, this is FEMA reimbursement versus funds from our town fund. Can you please explain the difference?
There is no FEMA application right now because we don't have FEMA approval to give us aid. There is a form on the town website that we're using and asking residents to fill out, attach pictures, tell us about your damage, tell us about your cost to support our FEMA application.
So we have a FEMA application in the works.
We already submitted an application as a town to FEMA, but there are no individual homeowner or resident forms yet.
So there's been a FEMA application on behalf of the town.
Correct.
Submitted.
Correct.
And that's what's being presented here.
Yeah, this is the high-level view of that submission.
Okay. And so then those funds, what we saw there is a portion of that is for town road debris right-of-way removal
Correct.
from town road
Correct.
right-of-way.
Correct.
So a portion of those FEMA funds are supposed to go towards that if we're granted this.
Correct.
Correct. And I just clarify that that money you would only put towards town road.
Right now, our understanding is that FEMA only allows the money that they give us to work on town roads. But here's how I think about it, and I think Harry agrees, and I think Sue agrees. We are a town. Everyone suffered damage, regardless of whether the roads are private or not. I believe we should do a townwide cleanup, and if we can, legally, help the people in the shores.
So, yeah, that's great. That's what I want to hear. I just want to clarify, though, that what we vote on tonight, it really doesn't matter whether or not we get reimbursed from FEMA. You want us to spend this money tonight, period.
Yes, we need to make our roads safe, yes.
Okay, and that's coming from which fund?
The general fund.
And was that approved by the Board of Finance? Was this action approved by the Board of Finance?
Excuse me, ma'am, this is turning into the conversation that I wanted to avoid, so please
I thought it was question and answer, I'm sorry.
Continue, but we're gonna cut it off in a minute. And then you can
So was this resolution approved by the Board of
Yes,
Finance?
it was approved by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance.
At what date was it approved by?
So I don't have the date in my head. We can go back and find it for you. Or you
Okay.
can go back and look at the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance meeting minutes on the town website.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my point is that my main point is that the people in Candlewood Shores, Arrowhead Point, and Candlewood Lake Club pay full taxes to the town. We always have. We always will, as far as I know. We all pulled together just like everyone else. I myself was out in my road for 4 hours until it got dark.
Yep.
I'm not seeking reimbursement, but I do believe that our neighborhood has an equal right to either this general fund appropriation and the FEMA funds. And I would also like to know that I'm going to be able to see exactly how the determination was made and every road that got money in town and where that money goes and how it was justified. Thank you.
Yeah, we have to do that, so we will do that.
Oh, and as a side note, it took me 2 minutes to find that FEMA actually does approve funds for town right-of-way, for private road right-of-way. I can quote you some of that. Doesn't take long at all.
Thank you, ma'am.
So you don't want that information.
No,
you
no.
do want the information, but not right now so the town can hear it.
Excuse me.
Ma'am,
Excuse me.
Ma'am, we're aware of that. But what people aren't aware of, and I said it earlier, is FEMA's rules change depending upon the disaster. They would not guarantee anything to us. They haven't guaranteed that they'll give us money even if we're approved for aid for our town roads. We just don't know yet. We've said we agree we should do this as a town. We're going to try to do that. but I don't have the answer right now. I don't.
But I'm trying to actually share information to help you
Yes, I
get
know,
to that
but What I'm
answer.
telling you is it doesn't matter what you have there. It matters what FEMA actually does.
And this is actually quotes from FEMA's fact page.
Thank you very much. You can come back up later. Thank you very much.
If I can say one thing, our FEMA coordinator has told us that they change from event to event. And I can't promise something, the town can't promise something to anyone if we don't have it in writing from FEMA ourselves. We've heard that they have covered private roads. We've heard that they've not covered private roads. So we have to wait and see what they tell us. I'm sorry, that's the best we can do. I'm not going to promise you something I don't know yet. Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. I guess to avoid the conversation, and if you could make your comments and then ask the questions, and we'll answer please ask all of your questions at once. We'll try to respond, and if there's follow-up, that'd be fine. But that's the way to keep this meeting orderly. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. My name is Clive Milton. I live at 21 North Beech Tree Road here in Brookfield. And North Beech Tree Road was one of the worst hit roads. What? You can't hear? Is that any better? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, my name is Clive Milton. I live at 21 North Beech Tree Road, which is partly town road and partly private road. The tornado hit in our garden. We lost approximately 30 to 35 trees. It was over a week before we were dug out by no help from the town, no help from the state, and no help from FEMA. It was all done by volunteers who were absolutely brilliant. It took them 4 days just to dig out the road to allow us access. The town closed its offices because it doesn't have a backup generator. There was no information about where we could go for help, for water, for a shower, for food, any kind of emergency services, nothing. They just disappeared into the woodwork. There was no notice on the front door. One of the questions I have is, what is individual assistance? That was up here, because it doesn't explain what individual assistance is. Secondly, what is the difference between a lending assistance for major damage that is declared by the state? As far as I know, the state has declared a state of emergency for the Brookfield area and some other towns around here. The FEMA have been extremely evasive, and every time I call them, they say, well, we're not involved yet because the town hasn't collected the data. That's not the kind of answer any of us want to hear. Next was why, as the lady before me said, we all pay our taxes, but because we live on a partially private road, we happen to live right at the very end, so in a dead-end road. So in order for me to move my debris to the town road, I have to drag it 350 yards. 350 yards to move 50 or 60 tons of debris. No, I can't do that. I need the town's help, I need the state help, and FEMA's help. And it's just inexcusable that private roads like Candlewood Shores, and there's a lot of private roads like mine, that have notoriously been cut off at the knees. We pay the same taxes and we do not get any help. That has to change. And if it doesn't change, then we have a major problem. And I think if the town doesn't change its way of thinking, then I think the current board needs to be voted out. That's only one thing.
Thank you, sir. That's 3 minutes.
Well, 3 minutes isn't enough.
You may come back. You may come back after everybody's had a chance. That's the ground rules.
I want another chance to finish.
You'll be able to come up after everybody has a first chance, I promise.
Fine.
And there were a couple questions that if you want to address.
I've said this so far 3 times this night. We're going to try to help everyone in town, but the town cannot break the law in doing that. We're going to try to go down, what I'd like to do is go down every single road, private or non-private, and clear them as long as residents can get their stuff to the town right-of-way, to the side of the road. That's what we want to do. But we can't break the law. We don't set the law. We don't set these regulations. FEMA does, and the state does. So we have little control over that. Oh, does that answer the question? Thank you.
Hello, Rebecca Schemp, 37 North Lakeshore Drive, Candlewood Shores. And obviously, as everybody else has, the similar questions. I'm new to the area, and so I don't understand the whole, we're a private tax district, we pay the same amount of taxes, and yet we don't get the same amount of assistance. Now, you talk about legalities, you're asking the people of Candlewood Shores and Arrowhead Point and everywhere else to submit their pictures and everything to help you with the FEMA application. But you aren't saying that you'll definitely help us out. So I don't quite understand how that's legal. Hey, you submit your pictures and help us get money, but we may or we may not give you any to help with that. The other thing is, you know, a section of one of our roads is not part of Candlewood Shores. So does that mean if everybody from Candlewood Shores takes their stuff and puts it on the right-of-way on that road, you will then pick it up? Does that make sense to you?
Again, we're trying to find a way to help everyone in town. I believe that everyone who lives in Candlewood Shores should get the same support, and Arrowhead and everywhere else get the same support as people who live on town roads. That just seems reasonable to me. We all pay taxes, we all pay about the same rate of taxes, but we have to find a way to do it legally, and we have to be very careful of the FEMA rules. Again, we don't know what FEMA is going to say to us. If they say to us, hey, private roads are fine, good, we're done. Right, we can do that. I don't want to get into a conversation back and forth because that really is not helpful for people. So we're going to try to do that. It's early days yet. We just got FEMA to respond to us today. They're going to come up Monday. We'll get more information from them Monday. They're going to do a drive-through. We're going to take them to Candlewood Shores. We're going to take them to Maine, Mist Hill, Flax Hill, Vista, Allen, all the places that were really hit hard. But we just don't have the answers. And we've said as a town, we're going to try to help everybody. That's where we are right now.
Now, the vote tonight is about taking the money from the general fund, though.
Correct.
It's not really about the FEMA.
That's cool.
And so we're allowed to vote, but we definitely will not get help from the town if it's only from the general fund. Is that correct?
No. For, I guess, the 5th time. We are going to try to find a way to help everyone.
But if this doesn't have anything...
we don't know how we can do that, whether we can use FEMA funds or town funds. Now, we have to be very careful. If we use town funds to clear private roads, FEMA might come in, and they have done this before, and say, sorry, you don't get any support. So you have to give us time to find a way to legally do this. I can say to you right now, yeah, we're going to do your road. We could lose $3 or $4 million in FEMA fund. So what we're saying to you is bear with us. We're working on this. We believe you pay taxes like everyone else in town. Sometimes more, we're trying to do it. I just can't tell you that we have a way to do it tonight.
Thank you for that clarification on that.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next.
Carmine Rossitano, 6 Big Buck Lane. I'm a little confused because when the storm hit, myself and my neighbors went out and we cut down some of the trees and branches that fell in the street and moved it to the side so that vehicles could pass. About a week or so ago, a bulldozer came by, picked up all the debris in the street and threw it on the sidewalk. So I called the town and I asked them if they were going to come in and pick up the debris. And I gave them our address and they said, we weren't on the list, but we're on the list now. So I'm asking if the debris is on the, I guess, property, is off the street and just on the curb. It's within 30 feet of the right-of-way, I assume the town is going to come and pick it up? And if that's the case, when is the town going to come and pick it up? Second question I have has to do with personal cleanup costs. I lost 13 trees that fell, and myself and a few people from a tree service company came and we chopped them up. Now, the tree service company told me that they would charge me less if I paid them cash, which I think is pretty common. So now I see that there's a way to send costs to FEMA for reimbursement. So I'm going to ask, if you pay cash, how do you send reimbursements to FEMA for personal cleanup, and is that included anywhere in FEMA? Third is that I haven't seen anything from the state, and with all the taxes Brookfield pays for the state, I'm very disappointed in the state response to Brookfield. They declared it a disaster area, and that was the last I heard. And fourth, just for the people who live in Candlewood, these are all figures based on town roads. Is there any figure for the cost associated with cleaning up private roads that's not on there that could help out the people that could help our residents who live on private roads, because like you, I believe they should be helped by the town.
Great. Thank you, Carmen.
What was the first question?
I have them right here. First, when is, I wrote them down. When do you think pickup's going to be?
Well, if this gets approved tonight, we have our bid back from all of the, about 12 different bidders. We have a preferred provider to start clearing up roads. If this gets approved tonight, one of the reasons we went and asked for the money to come from the general fund, because if we asked to borrow the money, we'd have to wait 45 days to have a referendum. We don't want to wait 45 days. So if this gets approved tonight, we will award a bid tomorrow, and that company will probably be in here on Monday. They've told us that they can clear 60,000 cubic yards in 30 days. That's what they bid on. So that is a significant portion of all of the debris that needs to be cleaned up. Again, to your point, will we clean up on the town right-of-way? Yes. If we pushed it onto the right-of-way, just over onto the grass, if it's in the town right-of-way, even if it's a little further and we know we did it, we're going to clean that up.
The next question was the methodology for personal cleanup costs, particularly of cash.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
You're both talking at the same time.
I'm moving on to your next question, Carmine, and that was the methodology for personal cleanup costs, particularly cash.
Again, we're looking at this. It's the same conversation. We need to understand exactly what FEMA will and will not cover, and then we need to understand how the town can help everybody in town, and that becomes legal and regulatory, and we'll just have to work our way through that, and that's what we're going to try to do.
Any response to his disappointment with state assistance to date?
The state has been very, very helpful in getting resources from Eversource, Charter, Frontier, so I wouldn't say that they've been totally useless. The state, everybody knows the state of the state's budget. They don't have a lot of money for these things. They rely on FEMA for disasters, I believe. So I wouldn't expect that we could get anything from the state. I don't believe they even have a state relief fund, or Dan Malloy would have told me that. So we're looking for FEMA.
And then finally, an estimate on private road cleanup costs. Any thoughts on that?
No, we don't have an estimate on that. It's probably, I don't have an estimate on that. But as a percentage of our roads, Ralph, what percentage of roads in town are 10%? Yeah, so we'll look at that, and then we'll get an estimate for doing private roads, right?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
FEMA said to us, and we've said it as many times as we could at every meeting, save every receipt, take pictures. So if you've paid for some repair in your home or your yard or tree removal, take a picture before you do the work and save your receipts.
Great. Thanks. Sir?
Jerry Frederick, 10 Cherokee Drive. Thanks for all your efforts, first of all. I know this is something you didn't sign up for, and we all appreciate it. But a couple of questions, and I'll try to make it really quick. Number one, you're going to ask us to vote on this $1.1 million today. It's going to come out of the general fund. Where does that leave our general fund? What percent, do we have? Number two, if we, you can write that down, Steve. If we get, let's assume that we get the FEMA funds. Are the FEMA funds going to be used to reimburse this 1.1 we're approving tonight? If not, does that mean we're going to be spending $3, $4, $5 billion on this project? Yep.
As you know, in the past 3 years, we've taken some hits to the general fund, but we've gotten it up to about $5.3 million, which is 8.1% of our budget. So this would bring us down to about $4.1 million, which would bring us, off the top of my head, to about a 6% unassigned general fund balance. And I do believe we use this money to do town of Wright cleanup. FEMA will pay us 75%, so we will be using much less of the town's actual resources. You saw it in the report that Greg made. Right now, we estimate the town will be spending total about $396,000. So yes, Jerry, that money would go back into the general fund.
Any other first-time speakers? Could go to the... And name and address for the record as well, please. Thank you.
Anna Domingos. I live in 11 Estill Drive. And I just had a question how the streets will be prioritized, just because Estill is pretty, to say the least. So I'm just wondering. Mm-hmm.
Our emergency management director, along with our chief of police and his support personnel, went around the entire town and made a determination as to what the worst roads are, how to get people the safest, and how to clear the roads. Mm-hmm. Mist Hill Drive, Main Drive, Allen, Flax Hill, you guys are brutalized.
Yes.
I've been there 5 times. I used to live on Mist Hill Drive. Mm-hmm. It was brutalized, and we worked as hard as we could. So what they do, especially with the utilities, is they work from the core. Remember, both of our substations sustain damage also, which is very unusual. So to repair that, then they go through and they try to get as much power to as many people as quickly as possible. And we prioritize the roads based on traffic, number of houses, number of people, all of those sorts of things. The key was to try to get a path through every single road to start with. Mist Hill Drive and Main and all of the roads there, we had a problem. There were so many power lines down that it's hard to clear the roads with live power lines. Yeah. So you have to wait for the utilities to come in, and you're kind of playing leapfrog to do that. But that's how we prioritize. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's just been pretty dreadful.
It's been horrible.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Thank you.
Last call for first-time speakers. Anybody? No? Ma'am? Oh, go ahead.
Do you need me to introduce myself again?
Sure.
Okay, Clive Milton, 21 North Beechtree Road here in Brookfield. One question I have is, why is it that the state can free up millions of dollars for Eversource to come in and do their emergency work, yet the town of Brookfield can't get any assistance? Yeah, Eversource were able to bring in crews from all over the country. They got money from the state to pay for it. Eversource pays for everything.
Eversource is a private company.
I know.
They don't get any money from the state. This is a risk they take in being in the business that they're in, that they're going to lose poles, power lines, transformers. So the 150 crews we got them to bring into Brookfield are paid entirely by Eversource and Eversource alone. Same thing with Charter and Frontier. Neither the town nor the state nor the federal government will pay them a penny. They just have to maintain, they have an obligation, given the monopoly they've been given, pretty much, to maintain those. And they replace 52 miles of power lines. And nobody pays them. They take it out of their own.
Okay. They didn't cut one branch on our street. Not one.
They might not. They're there to
No.
restore power. Now,
They couldn't get to the power unless they removed the trees. They didn't remove the trees.
they go through and restore power. If they've got to cut trees to do that, they will. But
But in
they're
this
not
case-
there to replace trees or take trees
No,
down.
in this case, they did not cut any trees. 100% of the trees cut on North Peachtree Road were done by volunteers.
Okay.
Nobody else.
If you had left those trees, and
Then-
thank you for doing that, they would come through and cleared those trees.
But because we live on a partially private road, if we left the trees and nobody came, and Eversource didn't cut them down or clear the path, we would still be stuck because the town
No. the
was
town-
unable to do any work on that road.
I disagree with you. We're not going to leave any road undrivable. I'm sorry, we just wouldn't do that. We thank you for all the work you did in clearing that road, whether it's private or not. But you can see in Candlewood Shores, Eversource came through and cleared roads and put stuff on the side. That's what they would do. To get to your house, to get you power, they have an obligation to clear the road to get to you, to get you power.
Well, they didn't live up to their obligation, so what can the town do to make sure that they follow the obligation in the future?
I would have to say, I have to disagree with you. When Eversource came in, they started with about 75 crews. I made a call to the governor in one day, in cooperation with Wayne Gravius. We made calls. Within one day, they had 150 crews here. We had more crews than any other town. And they did, I think, a really good job, given the difficult circumstances under which they were working and the massive amount of damage.
No, I'm sure, yes, they did do a good job, except on our street. But that's one issue. What I'd like to know is, will the town reassess property taxes due to the lost valuation? Because as in my particular case, the valuation of my property is now dropped by 30 or 40%. I don't want to be paying the same amount of property tax if the valuation isn't what it was before the storm.
Are there other questions in your list so that we can get them all on record?
Yes, I haven't. Yes, the one other question is, I'd like to know why I haven't seen any town official on North Peachtree Road to assess the damage.
Thank you.
You may not have seen them, but we had crews out visiting. On the night of the storm, and Wednesday and Thursday, we knocked on every single door in town. Every single door in town. You may not have been there when we came, but I'm sorry, but we knocked on every single door, and we have the list of doors, and all the volunteer fire companies that came in, they knocked on my door. Now, my neighbor wasn't home at the time, and they knocked on his door, but he didn't know that. I'm sorry, what was your first question?
Will there be a reassessment due to damage?
Yes. Assessments are made as of October 1st of each year. So this coming October, if your house has been damaged and doesn't have the value, you can then go to the Board of Assessment Appeals and appeal the value of your house. Most people, hopefully, we hope, that have damage to their house and have insurance will have their houses fixed by then. So their valuations probably wouldn't change very much. But if you have damage and your house isn't the value, then you can come to the town and make an appeal back then. But this whole year's values are based on last October 1st. State law is you do it once a year. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think we're really getting off topic here. We're talking about storm damage tonight. You're more than welcome to call my office. We can sit down and talk about it, but we're really talking about the storm damage.
Yeah, I'm going to cut that off as well.
Hi. Deirdre Corey, 57 Skyline Drive again. So just trying to understand this, because I don't think I really understand. We've got the special appropriation that we're being asked to vote on tonight that you've stated was approved by the Board of Finance at some meeting, but you don't have the date. Was that prior to the notice?
Continue with questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we've got this one special appropriation for tonight, 1.177 million, and it's based on some need for the town right-of-way with the danger of the Widowmakers, and I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I want that done for everybody, for the town, for our safety. But I just don't understand what roads and who's getting that 1.177. Then we also have this FEMA application that's been made, and it's my understanding, and I'd like to clarify, that this FEMA application does not include debris removal from private roads. Is that, I kind of need to know the answers before I ask my next question, so can I pause on those two?
Yes,
okay,
yes,
thank
yes,
you.
You may. Steve. Steve.
Usually I'm loud enough, everybody can hear me without the mic. On May 25th, both the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance approved this. It's in the minutes. You can get that from the town clerk, Andrea DeStefan. She's more than willing to help you with that. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much. I just didn't have it with me. This application to FEMA right now does not include cleanup of private roads or Candlewood Shores, just town roads. That's that answer.
Okay, so the FEMA application doesn't include any reference to the private roads. The money for tonight doesn't include reference to private roads. But then you said we're going to try and find out from FEMA if we can get the money from FEMA. Mm-hmm. How will you even find out from FEMA if you haven't applied to FEMA for it? So that's where I'm just confused. At what point are we going to look for money for private roads from FEMA? After this gets approved?
The application we sent to FEMA is called a PDA, Preliminary Damage Assessment. You can update that at any time. In fact, we already have updated it. So we will update it continually based on information from FEMA, the feedback we get from them, what can be included, what can't. It's a moving target, and FEMA is very good about that. They're not saying, okay, you put your application in, nothing more. They're more than willing to discuss with us private roads, associations, tax districts, things like that. But it's a preliminary damage assessment. It's not written in stone.
Has any mention been made to them about private roads?
Yes, I thought I said this earlier. We asked them and they said it depends. Mm-hmm. And what it depends on is factors. And what factors? Many factors. That's what they've said to us. So that's the answer we have so far from FEMA. We're going to continue to push them.
But you didn't then, and so have you started an estimate of the damage to the private roads?
Please follow the ground rules, and we had the conversation. Now, are there other questions, ma'am?
That's the question.
Is that the last question, or are there others?
Okay, so have you started the estimate of damage to the private roads? When can we expect that will be presented and applied to on this continual update to FEMA? If we get a rejection from FEMA on the private roads, to me, the only way I'll vote for tonight is if I get a guarantee, not that we'll try, but that we will, from town funds, pay to the appropriate and reasonable and fair damage to private roads from the storm.
We are going, I'm not going to lie to you. We are going to do the best we can. I think Sue believes, and I think Harry believes we should do a town-wide cleanup. But I can't sit here and tell you, ma'am, that I can clean it up because FEMA hasn't told me what they'll give us, and we have to check the laws and the regulations. Now, we're doing the best we can. We're trying to help everyone, but we have to stay within the laws. And I know that's not what you want to hear, but that's where we are right now.
Thank you. Yeah, please, Mr. Newton.
So the answer to your other question is yes. We've started estimating the debris cleanup for private roads, and we've started the process of estimating insured and uninsured losses for businesses and for private residents.
It's okay.
Hello, Melissa Marisi, 67 Obtuse Road South. I have two quick questions for you, Selectmen. You had mentioned in a meeting I was in with you about a week ago that we had all of our paperwork all done and sitting on the president's desk, and that our whole state did, and that we were just waiting for approval. So yeah, I was sitting in a meeting with 4 other people that are in this room. And I, at that point, was wondering how that could happen so quickly. Now you're mentioning that we're still going back and forth and doing revisions on it. So what kind of time frame? Typically it's what, like 2 months until it's declared?
Is that it, Melissa?
That's one question. I have one quick other question. The other question is Eversource. I did speak with them at great length regarding our road. Obtuse Road South was hit bad, as many of you know, as many of your roads were. They did mention to me very clearly, every person was consistent saying that the only trees that they were allowed to touch or that they would touch would be one that was lying on a wire. And they most certainly, I have a half a mile leading to my house and my driveway, they most certainly would not even contemplate any of my 16 trees that were down. Very large 16 trees. There was no way for us to get into our driveway. We were lucky enough to be able to get people to come right away, and for 10 days straight they sawed. But, so I just wanted to get back to that Eversource comment before. I don't know of anybody who has heard otherwise from Eversource. So those are just my two basic questions, okay?
Thank you.
I've had a number of meetings, probably dozens and dozens of meetings with people. I don't believe that I ever said it's sitting on the president's desk. What I did say is the president of the United States can declare a disaster anytime he wants. Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Sandy, Katrina. The damage is so massive, the president doesn't have to wait to see if that area meets the requirements for amount of damage. It's a little odd in that you have to have enough damage for FEMA to pay. You have to have, in Fairfield County, over $3.2 million. In the whole state, over $8.5 million. Now, if a storm came through and it devastated the entire state, and it's very clear there's a few $100 million, the president could immediately declare a disaster. In this case, there's a process, and we do have it on the town website in the Brookfield Matters. It goes to the Region 5 first, then it goes to the state FEMA, then it goes to federal FEMA, and then they make a recommendation to the president. The timetable we've been told right now is that final determination will be the 3rd week in August. Does that answer that question? And to clarify Eversource, Eversource is not going to clear trees from your road. They're not going to clear. Yeah, they will clear any road, anything leaning on their branches or anything that stop. If they have to run a line and there's a tree across and they can't get past that tree, they will clear that and push it to the road. There. I'm sorry, could you come back up, because people who are watching this from TV would like to.
For people who are in a position where they are sitting with lots of trees and they don't know what to do with them, honestly, what kind of relief could we possibly ever consider that our town would be able to give us? Is there anything, or are we just kind of on our own with insurance, fighting insurance?
Yeah. Obviously, the primary is your own insurance. The problem is most people's insurance don't cover.
No, they don't, unless it's hurt the house.
So right now, the town doesn't have the resources nor the funds.
Okay.
One, we can't go on private properties, and two, we're going to work to do a town-wide cleanup. But right now, we have to make the roads safe. So this is a step-by-step process, I believe, and I think it's the way we should go.
Oh, I have to applaud everybody. Everybody worked together to make it as best as possible.
I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. I only have 3 questions. One is, do you know if Governor Malloy, Senator Blumenthal are assisting the town in any way to help support the FEMA application?
No, he said he had 3.
Oh, you have 3.
Okay. Oh, do you want to answer them one at a time?
I'd rather take all the questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On the town website, when we were asked to submit photographs of the damage, the website only permitted 1 photograph per application. 1 photograph doesn't show the damage. So moving forward, I think you should at least be able to upload at least a half a dozen or a dozen photographs. So that I hope that would be implemented down the road in case this happens again. And my last question is, how do we all get our voices heard by FEMA? Because obviously FEMA and you guys are going to be meeting privately, but how do we get them here to listen to everybody that's got something to say?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Senator Blumenthal is helping us a lot. He was here. We did a tour. I took him and Congresswoman Elizabeth Esty. They were here on Saturday after the storm. We took them for 2.5 hours about around town. We were on Allen, we were on Main, we were on Mist Hill, we were on Flax Hill. So yes, he's fully aware of what's going on. So is Congresswoman Esty, and Chris Murphy and I have spoken, and all of them have agreed to push FEMA very, very hard and push the president as hard as they can to declare this a disaster area. So they've all been helping us very, very much, as well as the governor. They've all been doing that. Your second question was?
One photo per application.
Yeah, I think we should allow more than one photograph. I wasn't aware of that, and we'll try to change that. The other thing we added today was a dollar amount, so you can put a dollar amount in that form. So if you come back to us and tell us that, and I agree with you, one photograph many times doesn't allow you to show the extent of the damage, right? In what you estimate your damages to be, personal property, trees down, all of those sorts of things, lost food, whatever you want to put in. I'm sorry? Yeah, we'll make it so you can add more photographs. You may have, probably we'll ask you to resubmit the form and then we'll combine them, right? Because you're not going to be able to pull up your old form, right? It's a pretty quick and down and dirty system we put together so people can report to us.
And then access by individuals to FEMA.
Yeah, I would suggest talking to your representatives, right? Sending notes to Chris, Dick Blumenthal, and Congresswoman Esty. I would also recommend that you make phone calls and telephone and letters to FEMA both in Washington, D.C. and at the state level. And if you included pictures, that'd be great. The more pressure we put on them and the more visibility we can get for the damage that was done in Brookfield, the better our chances. So I think that's a very good idea. We will get that and put that on the town website, yeah.
Greg, do you have anything to add to those?
So on the what we've done, just so you know, anyone who's filled that form out or any house that got an inspection by anybody in land use, we've created an Excel spreadsheet. And I think we're at 750 properties. Remember, this is preliminary. One picture, in fact, no pictures, you're in the system. Keep saving all your pictures, save your receipts. This is preliminary. What we've submitted to FEMA is the 750 property list that we have. They have that list of addresses. They said just keep adding to it. So that's all I can say. Just keep adding to it. We keep growing the database. And if we're approved by FEMA, even if you haven't got a picture or submitted, it doesn't mean you're uneligible. We're just collecting data on a preliminary basis at this point, and we're still collecting it daily.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Judy Heisey, 59 Flax Hill Road. I move the question.
So is there a second to that? So now what? Second is taken. So okay, okay. So now we'll take a vote as to whether we are going to vote. Skip to the vote right now. So all in favor of moving straight to vote and stopping discussion, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries. We will move straight to the vote. Thank you. So with that, we're going to vote on Resolution 1, which is the special appropriation of $1,177,000 for storm damage. We'll do that in the same method I just did. All in favor of the resolution, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Resolution passes. Thank you. Okay. We're going to move on to Resolution 2 for tonight's town meeting. That is the bond resolution in the amount of $2,578,050 for capital projects. Similar to the last resolution, we would have the town attorney read that resolution unless there is a motion to waive the reading. So moved by Mr. Jaffe. Is there a second? Second by Ms. McIlvaine. All those in favor of waiving the reading of the motion, please raise your hand and say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Great. So now we move to a presentation by Mr. Dunnigan.
I think probably most of the people in this room have been following the capital budget. We've gone through 2 votes on the budgets. The first vote included the capital, and that was voted down by a lesser margin than the town or the schools. It was pretty close, I think about 100 votes. The Board of Finance has made a decision to take about $120,000 out of that capital budget, cash spending. We need to move that forward in order to vote on it, and it's another separate referendum because that's the way capital goes. We can't do it with the normal operating budget vote we do every 2 weeks. So that's the process there. Okay. I think most people have seen it. The budget, the entire capital budget, has been on the website for about 3 months, and you can look at it very, very carefully, and you can see it. But I think we should move it forward so that everyone, so we can get a vote. One of the things that we're trying to do is to get the schools projects done, and if we have a referendum as late as this, some of those projects they can't do because they can only do it during the summer, and it's a result of the vote being put down, but that's the process we go through. Okay?
Okay. This resolution is now open for discussion. Same process, 3 minutes per speaker. Please limit it to the topic at hand and name and address.
Howard Lasser, 116 Tower Road. First, I just want to I want to clarify. The amount we're asking to borrow is the same as what we voted on June or May 15th. Is that correct? Or the amount that we're borrowing? Because they didn't change that. So we're basically sending back to the public the exact same request for borrowing.
That's correct.
Okay, without any change. And that includes, as I understand, $300,000 for school projects that have yet to be determined as to what they are or how much they actually will cost. Is that correct?
No, there was $300,000 in that for the
Steve.
There was $300,000 in that for the Tecton advisors for the building, right?
Right, and I was told by the chairman of the Board of Finance that the Board of Ed said that was for, as they go through the facilities, if they find something that needs to be done immediately, that's what that $300,000 would be for.
I'm not aware of that, Howard.
Okay.
I thought it was for the architectural design and continuing that so we can.
Well, I would suggest that the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen ought to get together with the Board of Ed and get correct on exactly what it is you're asking the town to fund. I would say there's two comments I want to make. First of all, the idea that we conflate this request for borrowing and calling it a capital budget, there's nothing in our charter that talks about a capital budget. We have one budget, which we voted on the 15th, and then again on 2 weeks later, whatever that was. And that's the budget. What we're asking the people to approve is an appropriation for borrowing. It is the fourth time we've gone to do this in the last 4 years. So we're asking basically people to approve $10 million over these 4 years for various small projects that used to be included in our operating budget. So I would just request that our elected officials actually represent the facts, not conflate the budget with a request for borrowing, which is not really part of the budget. I'd also like to make a comment that in my 37 years in town, to my recollection, this is the first time that the town has turned down a request for borrowing, and the Board of Selectmen has sent the exact same referendum back to the town without any adjustments.
Our capital budget was lowered. I would take exception to the statement that we're doing a lot of small things. This year, the capital expenditures, anything except for one item, anything $40,000 and under, we either pay cash for it or we're not doing it. So we're constantly moving that bar up because I think we should pay for more things in cash. I agree with Howard. They should be in the operating budget and passed as operating things, you know, not going out to borrow. It is hard not to do that and get reasonable increases in the taxes. In this year alone, we have 3 things that are the primary drivers in the budget. That's grants, cuts in grants, about $260,000. increases in special ed, $1,065,000 that the town had to already fund $470,500 of this year. And the, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. What was the third thing? I apologize. But there are three things driving the budget, and we'll put that up on the website tomorrow. Those three things are 2.77% of the overall 4.2% increase, meaning the actual increase in operating from a day-to-day basis is going up about 1.2, 1.3 something. So this is a very difficult year. We've had a perfect storm of issues: increased special funds, grants cut down, and our elderly and our veteran relief, which we had to add back in the budget for $485,000.
Thank you, thank you. So I just want to, before we move on, if there's other speakers, I just want to make clear, Town Attorney, please correct me if I'm wrong, that this resolution, all we're doing tonight is setting a date for a referendum. We're not actually voting on whether or not to vote on the number. Is that correct?
That's correct. That'll happen at the referendum
Great.
itself.
So I know that there was confusion of that earlier in the year on stuff, so I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that that's what the discussion and the vote is. Go right ahead.
Yeah, can you repeat what you just said? Because I don't understand it. Are we just now voting for a date?
That's correct.
We're not voting for an amount.
No, we're voting for, so the resolution, the way this resolution works, to my understanding, is that the resolution goes to referendum and the town sets the date for that referendum.
And when does the town set the amount to be included in the referendum?
This is the amount that will be included. If it is voted down, there will be another amount that will go to another vote.
So we're deciding tonight for the amount to be included?
No, we're decided tonight for the date to vote on this amount.
Sorry, point of order.
Go on, please.
There are two resolutions before the town right now. The first one is the amount to go to the referendum.
Okay, so that's
Resolution 3 is the date of that referendum.
I'm sorry.
So what are we voting on now? Is it just the date, or is it just the amount, or both,
Please,
or neither?
I apologize. I was confused as well.
Sure. John Bowser, Collins Hannafin, the town attorney. There are two remaining resolutions before the town tonight. The resolution number 2, which we're dealing with now, is the amount of the resolution for the capital projects. That's the 2.578 million. Resolution 3 will then be, assuming that Resolution 2 passes, Resolution 3 will be to set a date for that referendum.
So now we're voting on the amount?
Correct.
I misspoke,
Okay.
and I was misinformed, to be honest. Yes, Mr. Jaffe. So, all right, so now I'm confused. So will a number, if the vote is no, will there be another number set tonight?
So, no, there's no resolution that's passed the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance yet. This is just to set the number to be proposed at the referendum. In other words, a vote no today doesn't vote down that capital spending bill. It just proposes that number to be set forward to the referendum. So Resolution 2 is the number to go to a referendum. Resolution 3 is the date of that referendum. And then that referendum vote will decide whether or not that number actually passes.
Point of order, is it proper to make an amendment to the number or no?
No, an amendment to the number tonight would not be appropriate because that would have to be passed by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance first. The resolution before the town tonight is sending that number forward to referendum.
Or not?
Or not.
Okay.
Howard Lasser, 116 Tower Road. And with that clarification, I would urge us to say no to this tonight, have the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance and Board of Ed get back together and clarify exactly what it is we're asking for. For if, in fact, and I've sent a note to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, that particularly with the school project, there is a better way to finance the school project without putting it as part of a bond referendum at this time. So, I mean, if we had the opportunity to make amendments, I would take that $300,000 out of the proposal. But since we can't, I would say go back to the drawing board and do what other boards of selectmen and board of finances have done in the past, sharpen the pencil, get it right, and then go back out for another referendum.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm totally confused on this issue. I mean, I thought tomorrow night there's going to be a presentation concerning options for the school. Is this $300,000 for the school part of what's going to be presented tomorrow, as well as what's included today? I mean, are we double counting this? You know, could somebody please explain it, maybe put up exactly what it is that we're voting for? I know it's on the website, but the website is like 4 or 5 pages of detailed, and sometimes it's difficult to determine exactly what it is that we're voting for. So I'd like to know, is the $300,000 in this capital program included in a bond resolution that we may be voting on when the school presents its options tomorrow night?
So I'll step out of my moderator role and step into my Board of Finance role and state that I understood the $300,000 to be similar to the way Mr. Dunn did, that it was to fund architectural work or other work related to the broader project. If there was other conversation between the chairman and members of the public, like Mr. Lasser, that would be a surprise, and perhaps Mr. Lasser is correct, and perhaps further sharpening of the pencil and understanding is wise. So that's my Board of Finance answer. Now I'm the moderator.
So what was the answer?
I believe it's part of the school project.
It is. So then it shouldn't be part of the capital projects that we're voting on. So it would be rolled over.
Exactly. It will be rolled over into the school project. That's my understanding right now. That's my answer. Other comments on the amount to be possibly forwarded for referendum? No. Okay. So then what we will now be voting on is whether to send whether to send to referendum a capital projects amount of $2,578,050. All those in favor of sending to referendum a capital projects amount of $2,578,050, please raise your hand. All those opposed? So the motion fails. So we do not have to move to resolution 3. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Okay. What is number 8? To do any and all things which may be legally necessary or appropriate to accomplish the above named purposes. What do I have to do there?
That's right. Nothing. That's
okay.
Any other business.
Okay. Is there any other business to come before the town this evening? If not, I look for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Dembowski, seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Craig did. You did. I don't know. I'm sorry.